It's hard to keep up though.
Right.
So I do get I don't know, a few a month.
I just went live right now. Sorry. Just so you know, it just went live right now.
Okay.
Just in case.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's cool. So what would you like to talk about today? Oh, actually, let's do introductions.
Let's do introductions. Yes. So guys, welcome. Thank you so much for watching our live. I'm really happy to have Father X on with me again for a second time. It's really awesome. We're on two totally different time zones, so it's truly I'm grateful that you're taking the time out, and you're in the late day for you over there. I believe it's about 8:30 right now, and it's about 5:30 for me over here. So he's pretty much wind down and finished his day. But Father X, thank you so much for being with us. Please tell them about your channel and tell them a little bit about why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you for the intro. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you fine. Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
Good. Yeah, so I'm Father X, and I have a YouTube channel called Father X, How Fathers Can Win Child Custody Cases, and it's on YouTube only. And I'm doing it because I went through it myself, and I'm just another generic father who could be your brother, your uncle, your cousin, and I was shafted by the system, and I saw the incompetence and the gender bias in the system. I overcame it over the course of 3 years by studying my case law and preparing my own testimony. I had a lawyer, but I did most of the work myself. And it took me 28 hours of testimony, and I got custody of my son, primary custody. And awesome. It should have happened on day one if anybody in court actually paid attention to what's best for the child instead of what's best for the mother. But, it took me just over 3 years, and I realized the system was broken. I realized most people can't do this. You can't overcome this. All of the judges, the guardian ad litem, the police officers, the district attorneys, child protective services, all of these different government agencies where their starting point is, I don't know what's going on. Let me just make a ruling in favor of the mother to start with. Right. And they all do that, and they all take turns. And so I know the system is broken, and I don't want my son to grow up in that world. So I'm changing it. And I'm teaching dads how to overcome what happens in family court to get 50-50 or primary custody of their kids. Because it's not the case that 90% of the time the dad should be just removed from the kid's life and made alternate weekend father. And I don't want my son to have to go through that. So hopefully I'll educate enough fathers on how the system really works so they can overcome it. And maybe in 3 or 4 years, we'll have 30% of dads with 50-50 or primary custody, or 40% of dads, right? We'll just radically change the world if I can teach enough people these techniques.
And they're reaching out to you, which is amazing. And I think I speak for a lot of fathers. We're really grateful. It's almost like it's clearing the air for us to finally see through that pain that we sometimes drown in, and we just don't think clearly because we're just missing our family, missing our kids. And you're putting it very simply out there. You're outlining it. Look at, this is what to expect. This is what they want to hear. This is what you should be putting together. And you put it together so simply. And if you want to share maybe with what's coming in the future, are you ready to share that about your channel and why they should be following your channel and subscribing to you, especially fathers that are going through this right now, going through divorce?
Yeah, right now I'm doing probably the most important series. I'm on episode 11. Each episode has multiple sets. Like there's sections 10A, 10B, 10C. Episode 8 is 8A and 8B, because each episode is a topic area, and each topic area is too much to talk about in 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Right. So I have to make multiple episodes because I want to help dads win. I don't want to just complain about court or tell them a few high-level things. I'm actually trying to carry them to the finish line, with a real path to victory with detail. And right now, episode 11 is about testifying about the best interest factors. And, a lot of people think, what's the best interest of the child? That doesn't mean anything. Is it better for the kid to play baseball at my house or soccer at the mother's house? What does that even mean?
Right.
But there's actually technically, really good best interest factors that actually make sense, right? Like episode 11, A lays it out. Then I have episodes about domestic violence and how you testify about domestic violence, how you testify about false allegations of domestic violence. I have an episode like 11G, which is about co-parenting and how you testify about your ability to co-parent. 11F is about the emotional stability of the parents. Is one parent bipolar or borderline or have a mental health issue? There's another episode, 11E, which is about child abuse and neglect, or the parent's alcohol use. Like all of these things are really indicators of which parent is better to raise the child. And I think most of the time, both parents are about the same, more or less, and they should have 50-50 custody most of the time. But if one parent is like significantly better than the other one, it'll be because of these factors. And I try to teach dads how to talk about them because I think the problem is, even though these factors make sense, most judges actively hide from learning the facts about your case and ignoring the best interest factors. And I know that because I saw it happen in front of my face. When the court gave the mother custody only because she was unemployed temporarily, right? And they ignored everything else. They ignored my petitions that talked about her violence and her abusive nature and the like. But I basically took those best interest factors and forced it down the judge's throat when I testified for 28 hours in detail.
Right. Exactly. Gosh, that's tough. And I've heard the complete opposite as well too. That the mother is more financially stable, the breadwinner, and is I guess more fit and to take the child. And then you have in your case where the mother was, did not have a job or financially stable, and she was able to. They were saying that she was able to take it. It's I feel as though many times they'll just create an excuse or create something, and there's always a reason and a way to lean it towards the mom. There's every which way they could lean it, and it just makes it challenging for fathers because we tend to believe them. I mean, it is the law, and we want to be law-abiding citizens. So when the law says it's this way, you really question yourself. Is it really? Is it really? It's not. It's not always what the law says. In this particular case, I'm not saying we should look at. I mean, some laws are good and bad, but in this particular case, when it comes to fathers and mothers, I believe the laws completely are backwards, and you're just not in favor of. There's no equality. It doesn't matter if it's not in favor of the fathers. There's just no equality in the laws of court or family courts.
I think that the way the judges execute it all is completely wrong. The way judges execute it, they actively hide from the law. I'll tell you how they do it, Rocky. Do you like baseball?
I do. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So here's how judges make wrong decisions, right? And they ignore the law. Imagine that you and I on a baseball team, and we need a second baseman. Right. And we have two candidates for second base. Right. We will start off by thinking, oh, hey, you know what? Let me evaluate these two second basemen. Let me evaluate them on defense. Who has a higher fielding percentage? Who makes less errors? Who's quicker to the baseball? Who has a better throwing arm to first base, even though that's not that big of a deal. Right. And then, so that's 4 criteria we just have. And then let's think about offense. Let's come up with offensive criteria to compare them. Who strikes out the least? Who walks the most? Who has a higher batting average? That's 3 criteria. Who has more home runs? And who's better as a base stealer? Let's say that's 5 more criteria. We just came up with like 9 criteria to evaluate our 2 second basemen, right? And see who's better.
Right.
And who we want on the team. Well, in family court, they have to legally apply 9 criteria. But instead, what they do is they say, you know what? I'm going to choose second baseman number one because he strikes out less. And then you're left thinking, okay, that's a good reason. He strikes out less. That's a good reason.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is you're ignoring 8 other criteria.
Correct.
Right? What if that person is only better at less strikeouts?
Right.
What about the other 8 other things? Right? Batting average, home run power. So that's how family courts basically, in essence, commit fraud against fathers and families across America, is by pretending that they're making a decision based on best interest factor, but they are required by law to look at all the best interest factors, not just the 1 or 2 that rationalize giving custody to the mother, like, oh, she's unemployed, but let me ignore the fact that she's violent, she has borderline personality disorder, she threatens to end her life, she's emotionally unstable, ignore all that stuff, right? So that's the technique family courts use to commit fraud. And then average people are thinking, oh, so the judge said the person strikes out less. That sounds nice. That sounds good. But
Right.
they don't see how the fraud happens. And I teach people, oh, did I tell you about the pincer movement?
Say that part again.
Did I teach you about the pincer movement?
No, please remind me what that is, or tell me what that is. I don't think I heard that yet.
So if we have criteria for picking a second baseman, or if we have criteria for picking the better parent,
Right.
based on who's better able to educate the child, or who's better psychologically for the child, or who's less abusive. If you have 12 best interest factors according to the law, if the father's better at 7 out of 12, that's 7-5, right? However, there's no rule that you can't really quantify these things, because these are all, everything that I talked about is kind of subjective and it's subject to interpretation, and there's 12 factors, so which one is more important? Well, what happens if I'm the father and I win 7 out of 12? That's 7-5. The judge can still say, the mother's better at these 3 things, so I'm giving her custody, because those 3 things matter more. But what if I win 9 out of 12? I'm better at 9, and it's 9-3. She can say, these 2 things are really good about the mother, and she should have custody because these 2 things matter more.
Yeah.
It's not like a real weighing scale.
It's not.
So my strategy was, right, there's a lot of vagueness to it. And you can't quantify this stuff either, right? It's not a perfect measuring system. So my strategy was, knowing that the judge already proved to me for the first 2 years plus of my process, that the judge was going to rubber stamp anything the mother wanted. Every minor decision went in favor of the mother. Every major decision went in favor of the mother. I knew for a fact my judge was gender biased and incompetent and not caring about what's best for my son. So I needed to corner the judge and control my judge. So I did the pincer movement, which is a military strategy where you basically attack from multiple fronts. And I won 12 out of 12 best interest factors intentionally. That's why it took me 28 hours, because I needed to prove I was better than the mother at parenting based on 12 different factors. And I wanted to ensure that I won like 12-0. So the judge had no way to execute her gender biased agenda.
Wow.
And I call that the pincer.
That's some serious strategy. And how did you learn this? Like, where did you just learn through trial and error and going to court, or did you learn this from your lawyer? You said you did a lot of the work yourself.
Yeah, I did. This whole strategy was my own strategy. My lawyer did not come up with this strategy at all, like not even close. Most lawyers are like, okay, you know what? Let's make these 3 key points, because that's our case. They look to do 3 points, right? Everybody likes 3 bullet points,
right?
But that's really dumb, and most lawyers do that. The reason it's dumb is because I can say, here's 3 things I'm good at, and the judge will say, oh, here's 8 other things that matter. You didn't talk about them, so you lose.
Ah, yes.
Right. So I came up with the whole pincer movement strategy myself, because I needed to corner the judge. It's kind of like a boxing match. If you're in a boxing match and you punch the other guy in the head, but he moves his head, well, you accomplished nothing because he moved his head. So basically, you have to hold him in one spot so that he can't move his head, and then you keep pummeling his head. So similarly in family court, but if you win 12 out of 12 best interest factors, the judge has nowhere to go, nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, no excuse to come up with to say the mother is a better parent on any criteria.
Wow, you're awesome. That is awesome.
And yeah,
and you're not.
You know what's funny?
And your history is you're not, and you're not a lawyer.
I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah, and you're not a lawyer. That's awesome. Oh, sorry. What were you going to say?
But I do have a master's degree in business strategy, among other things. So,
awesome.
So that helped. But what's really neat is I think when you and I were talking on the phone over the past few days and weeks, I told you that I really like movies and do a lot of movie references for inspiration.
Yes.
And this inspiration came from the A-Team.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome.
Do you remember the A-Team with Captain Hannibal Smith?
Captain Hannibal.
And B.A. Baracus?
I definitely remember Mr. T. I love the A-Team, especially the intro. I always remember watching that intro. Yep. Yes. Those some good movies. That's when TV was good. Those when you can just sit in front of it for hours and learn something.
And everybody had machine guns, and they would all shoot each other, but nobody would get shot.
Nobody would get shot.
And
yeah.
But I remember throughout my 3 years of family court, like we talked yesterday about how it's so grueling and depressing and frustrating and hopeless. And so I needed to find inspiration anywhere I could. And one of the many things I found inspiration in, besides Rocky Balboa, right? That's a separate thing. But I always kept thinking about Hannibal Smith from the A-Team at the end of the episode, smoking a cigar, laughing and saying, "I love it when a plan comes together."
Yep.
Right? Because no matter what situation those guys were in, they always had a plan to get out of whatever jam they got in, right? They would always fight small militia armies.
Right.
And I remember an episode, Rocky, where the A-Team was captured. 3 of them got captured by a superior force, some militia, military group. And they somehow got word to Howling Mad Murdoch and told him, "We're trapped by a superior force." And Murdoch was out on the loose somewhere. And Murdoch got a whole bunch of people together, armed, and attacked this military group in the compound. And he hit them from the right and from the left, and they did a pincer movement on the military, on the superior force. Right? And that was like kind of, you don't know where you're going to get sparks of genius from.
Right.
But that's part of where I got it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. You're a big movie buff, or at least the 80s. I
watched all of them.
And is that the inspiration behind Father X? The name Father X?
That's interesting. Father X. It came out of the idea that I often use the term like, "Oh, this is just another generic person X," right? Or this is just another variable X, just like in math, right? Just X. It could be anything.
True. Yeah.
The variable X. And so I came up with Father X because it really means I'm just another generic father. I could be John or Bill or Bob or Jack or Miguel or whatever. It doesn't matter.
Right.
It's just Father X. Because everything that happened to me happens to everybody else. I'm just another one. Except that I figured out how to beat them at their game.
Yep.
And now I have to teach everybody.
Yes. I think we talked a little bit yesterday, and one of the questions I've gotten many times is because fathers are not really, well, I think fathers are really, I guess, not so much outspoken about what they're doing or what's going on. I feel as though they're quiet about things, or they're just not, they don't have the it may not be it may be the finances. Their finances, they're not willing to speak up. Maybe they're swallowing in a lot of depression, and they or don't have the finances to go to court or fight back again. many of them been financially drained with absolutely nothing, and they just can't fight anymore. In my case, I just want to share with you my situation. It basically was that where it was almost, I'd say, 2.5 to 3 years, about 2.5 years of the courts, and just going back and forth and back and forth. And every time I paid a visit, I would feel like it was loss of something. It was like property or money, or like huge payments were going out. And it was just like, it was so mentally and emotionally draining, and just knowing, like, everything that I worked so hard for was just going downwards. And I how and why this was happening. And yours, I guess, with your information, this is for fathers that are on what end of the spectrum? I guess, what are they ready to go back to? Are they just about to go to court? Is this the beginning stages where this would help a father? Is this somebody that can go back to financially, could go back to court and fight again for custody? Will this help fathers in all areas? This is, what do you feel as though your information, which I think is valuable, it's amazing and very valuable information. I think you guys should, if you guys are watching this live, please later go and subscribe to Father X's channel, and just take some time and watch the videos. This information will help you win custody or win time with your child. Where do you think this is going to help fathers at? Is it going to be really helping fathers in the beginning stages, going back to court, maybe fighting again? What do you feel?
So let's say that there's multiple stages. Ideally, you study all of this while you're still married and living with the mother, and before you even get to court, because day one of court is the most crucial time. Generally, what I hear a lot of complaining about is the mother went to court first because she was planning for it for 6 months, and she's been documenting stuff and recording stuff, and she's been planning for 6 months, and she called the police yesterday to have you arrested on some fake charge because today she's going to go to court, and the first day of court she can say, "Look at my black eye," or "Look at the cut of my arm," or "Look, he was arrested. I want an order of protection," and then they win. Like it's over, right? That's like the silver bullet, right? So planning ahead is crucial, and since most people, I would love it if everybody from the age of 20 to 29 that was single and not married and no children, if every dad, if every man saw my videos to understand what it takes to win a custody battle, it'll make them think twice about how to be a parent and how to be in a relationship, because it can all be stolen from you by the government so easily. So I wish I could just teach this to young men who don't know, because most guys don't know this. Why would you know until you're dragged into court? It's a big black hole. But then this helps primarily those guys who just got into court and they're starting the process. I want them to see all my videos. There's like 40 of them now.
Right.
I want them to see it because there's so much to know, and the sooner you learn it all, the sooner you can start executing in the courtroom the way you need to, figuring out what you have to testify about, what you have to document. And like the thing is, if your trial finished last week, well, it's too late to learn everything about the process because you probably screwed it up. Because why wouldn't you? Like, why would you know how it's supposed to work?
Right. Exactly.
But if you are already finished, let's say your case is already finished, then you might be able to file a change of circumstances in a custody trial, or have a motion for reconsideration. And if you watch my stuff, then maybe you learn how to do it differently the second time around. You have another shot at it.
That is something very important to take away, what you just said. I just want to just kind of recap that this is your information you're getting out there is like golden information to help fathers that are going through divorce win custody, or at the very least, depending on the situation, have a 50-50 say in their child's life and have, be in their life. But your main goal is for them to win custody. But this information, it would only be useful if it's not. Let me back up. It could be useful at any time, but it would be definitely useful if they knew about it before they were dating, got married, got into a serious relationship. And because this is what we are expecting as men in this country, is to possibly more than likely, I mean, probably a high percentage of men in the United States are more than likely going to go through what we're going through. And sadly, we need to know this information. How sad, we need to know this just as much as you need to put on protection. You need to know this information. I mean, it's just as important. And because so many people are not putting on this protection of Father X, you're having to deal with the consequences of family court, you know, and it's just so sad to hear that. But no, you're.
Do you know, Rocky, that I think, have you seen these statistics, or maybe you've seen other ones? But is it the case that like half of the marriages end in divorce, and of everybody that gets divorced, 80% of the time it's initiated by the woman?
Yes, it's initiated by the woman.
Okay.
And then
on top of that, it's like 90. I looked at the child support enrollment in at the federal government level across the country. 90% of recipients of child support are women, which means women have primary custody 90% of the time.
That's correct.
Right. And if I look at the U.S. Census Bureau and look at the numbers of single parent homes that are single mothers versus single fathers, it tells me that like 85, 90% of the single homes are mothers. Which and when I went to family court, I saw the bias against me for no legitimate reason. And I sat in the courtroom and I watched like maybe 30 other cases happening while I was waiting. And 100% of the time, the mother had default custody in those cases. Right. So I saw that pattern in real life. So I can see that how family court creates that outcome.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
And have
you seen those numbers too?
I have seen those numbers. I've seen a few statistics. I do remember reading that. And one of the things that dawned on me by going through those statistics is there was so much. They were also relating to the huge number of women divorcing in this country and winning custody of their children and getting child support. And these numbers also were related to single mother homeowners in this country on a high rise. So the people that are buying homes more than just families were single mothers, or just as much as single mothers. This definitely wasn't going to be fathers. I mean, you know, ditching out child support as well too. So I saw that statistic, and that really kind of like, it just shocked me. It said, okay, wait a minute. So that's great. I don't ever want to knock anybody for being successful in life, but being successful in this, like, you're really not winning if you're taking away from somebody else in order to gain your wins. And I just really kind of like hit me like, wow, you know, I don't mind letting my home go because my daughter is sleeping there. But me and my wife got the home together, but it just hurts me to hear there's so many other men that are going through that and financially just drained. There was something else I'm trying to think of at the same time as I'm speaking. It's just not coming to my mind, but it was one of those statistics. I just lost my train of thought, but I remember
was it about single mother homes? Was it about single mother homes and the outcomes of children? Thank
you. Yes. Now I remember. And this drive for single mother homes and the massive amount of divorce rates going up, 80% being women asking for divorces. I believe they related it back to this huge spike of the women's movement. The women's movement in this country. And by doing so, I feel as though many times women are actually hurting themselves. They really are hurting themselves by saying they want to be on their own, saying they want to do things on their own. They don't need a man. there's women that actually get involved in relationship and go through the whole process of getting married just to have the child and then leave. And I don't know about you, but many, I'd say I know 4 guys right now that I have talked to through my channel, one-on-one, that have actually all at the same age, between 3 to 5 is when the women started asking for a divorce. That was my situation. Between 3, 4, and 5, we started the talks, went through the process at 4, and then finalized at 5. And it's like
Interesting.
it's across the board. And if anyone's watching this live, either now or maybe in the future when you come across this after the live is posted, what was the age that began for you? I cannot tell you. There's one right here in my city next to me in Sunnyvale. There's one over here in Mountain View. I mean, there's one over here in Palo Alto, the one in San Jose. I've seen there's some guys that actually come to my work that there's 2 guys that come by my work every so often, and they say, hey, I remember seeing you on YouTube. Thank you for what you're doing. There's a guy who met me in the gym, said, hey, thank you for your talks. And sometimes it just gets me through it. I'm going through it right now. And the same situation, it's the same age range. I almost feel as though there's this huge thing and this unspoken rule with women that, okay, you fall in love, you get your situation set up, and then you have the baby and start the process between 3 to 5 and divorce. Because if you can get them out by 5, or sooner, even better, the child will forget all the attachments and the love and the bonding they've created with the father, and all that they learn is going to be with you. And so the child has no emotional tie to you anymore. And even if they did for a little bit or a few years, it's they'll easily lose it by manipulation, by constant, manipulation on a daily basis. And there's, God, I'm forgetting as we're doing this live, and I got to write this down. What's that? Mm-hmm.
What's interesting about what you're saying is, I've never heard this before, but if I were going to think out loud, a couple of things that come to mind is, a child cannot form memories until they learn to speak words.
Yes.
Right? That's a fundamental thing, because what are you going to remember? The car was blue. Well, you don't know the word car or blue. So you can't remember, right? So until the kid is like 4, maybe, is when they can start to form some memories. So that's an interesting dynamic. But also think about this strategically, right? If that's a pattern of behavior among some women, if a child is 0 to 4 years old, they need to be taken care of at home all day, or get a babysitter. So it's ideal to have 2 parents where one of them works and one of them stays at home. But if you're a single mom and your kid is from 0 to 4, you need to pay a babysitter all day long if you're going to work, right? So what, you're going to make $40,000 a year and pay babysitter $30,000 a year? It doesn't work.
And that's where I can do it on my.
You need a partner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then, however, when a kid is 5, they go to school.
Yeah. So
you don't need a babysitter.
Right.
You can have a job making $30,000 to $60,000 a year, and your babysitter is the school.
That's correct. That's right. And the I can do it on my own generation. The I can do it on my own generation is, I think, part of the is part of the problem that raised all these these children from single parent family homes. Not all are bad, but we have so many statistics that show that these single parent family homes, mostly mothers, have gone into incarceration, drug addiction, mental abuse, depression, and so on and so forth. And they have problems as they grow up. But this, I can do it on my own generation. These kids, there was one parent in the house that was angry, probably wasn't having sex, didn't have a relationship, was too busy working, maybe too much responsibilities, trying to be a mom, a dad, and everything else. and they were so stressed out, and they would vent out, and the only voice that child heard was not two voices in the house. They only heard one, and that one voice that they constantly heard: I can do it on my own. I can do it on my own. I don't need a man. I don't need anybody. Leave me alone. I can do it on my own. This mentality of resist. And these children now grow up, and they're the resist generation. The resist generation, saying, I'm going to march. No, I don't need to follow my laws. And no, I can be whoever I want to be. And now you see this whole movement in colleges and universities and at the doorsteps of capitals, where they're constantly wanting to resist new laws and new changes and everything, because because they were constantly hearing this, I can do it on my own generation. And with this resist generation, it comes this confusion of ideology of where, am I a man? Am I a woman? Am I this? Am I that? I just feel like it goes all the way back. And you brought up a really good point yesterday. I didn't think about this. And then when you brought up, I said, I've heard this before, but it never really dawned on me. The Reagan generation, Reagan had passed a law that caused men. Can you recap on that again?
You mean the Violence Against Women Act?
The Violence Against Women Act, yes. And that,
or are you talking about the Divorce Act by Ronald Reagan?
The Violence Against Women Act. I think that was a different president. You said.
Yeah, Bill Clinton in the late 90s.
Bill Clinton, that's it. And I think it was before Reagan. I think it was there was the birth control. It was in 1960s is when it was first invented. I think it didn't come out till like late 60s when the birth control came out.
Okay.
And that gives women more power to when it comes to the relationship, and now in the family courts and so on and so forth. I just kind of felt as though it started way back when. If you really connect all the dots, I feel like it's controlling.
It's an evolving society.
Yes, and this is how you tear down. This is how you tear down the United States, is by destroying the man, weakening the man's mentality, making him feel like he's effeminate. I just feel as though we're going down the wrong path. We can look at life beautifully, and your life in your present moment can be so peaceful, and you can make it as great as you can with what you have. There is no excuse for that. We ultimately have the power to create our own reality. But the world, if you do look at it, I'm not trying to be pessimistic. It's really fucked. It's really fucked in so many different ways. And we complain about the laws and things of that nature, but there's so much more to it, and it's so deeper. We have this mind control, I believe, that has got us locked in believing that we have to go into this cycle of slavery, believing that we have to have these jobs and so on and so forth. Although we do, but
if you're on child support, you definitely have to, right? Like if you have to pay child support, they've just made you a slave, so you can't ever take. If you have an 18-year career while your kid is from 0 to 18, you might take off 1 or 2 years or 3 years because life happens. But in child support world, you're not allowed to. You're required to be a slave for 18 years, or else they put you in jail. But you were talking, Rocky, before about single motherhood and the kids today, and I haven't seen research on this, but one thing that I'm curious about is what happened, because this concept that family court gives custody to women 90% of the time, this has been going on since the 90s, or maybe even earlier, but with so much separation since the 90s, because the Child Support Act changed everything like around 1990, roughly, and the states were incentivized to give custody to the parent that earned the least amount of money, because then the state could force the higher earning parent to pay more child support. And when that happens, the state gets a lot more federal funding, right? So the state has an incentive to basically commit fraud against citizens by pretending the lower earning mother is a better parent than the higher earning father. Right. Then the state makes more money on child support. So I wonder if you're talking about this all started like in 1990, that's like 35 years ago, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of children aged out, right? There's a whole bunch of kids in the 90s who had single moms,
Yeah.
in the 2000s that had single moms.
Mm-hmm.
And now those kids are like 22 years old, 30 years old, right? So it's this younger generation. And when we talk about the statistics that say children that are raised in single mother households are more likely to have criminal records by now, or be depressed, or having psychological issues, or threatening to end their lives, or suffering from teen pregnancy.
Right.
All of these negative outcomes. I wonder how all of these negative outcomes add up to what we have today, where you've got the dynamics that you talked about, right, in our society with our younger generation, and how so many of them are out of control. Not all of them.
No,
right?
no, thank goodness.
Maybe a quarter of them.
Mm-hmm.
A quarter of them, maybe. I don't know, 20%. But
yeah.
we know that 20% of the kids are raised by single mothers. So if 20% of them are out of control now, I'm trying to connect those dots.
Exactly.
And I don't know if I can or not. Have you tried?
No. Well, with the articles I've read, I feel as though it's definitely has something to do with the large growing amount of single parent family homes. And many of them were single mothers, and not single fathers. And the ones that were single fathers were shown, even in the studies that I talked about in the video yesterday. And the fathers did an amazing job, just like yourself. But we have a huge amount of statistics, and that statistic came out of a Harvard study, actually, and I saved it on my phone, and I unfortunately just cannot find it. I am so sorry, but I'm actually looking for it right now. But there's
wasn't it the one from UC Davis? Wasn't it University of California, Davis?
Yeah, that was from yesterday about fathers had a better outcome raising children than mothers. But the one that I'm talking about was about single parent family homes and the statistics that grew over the past like 50 years of them being incarcerated, drug addiction, sex addiction, mental disorders, and so on and so forth. And they didn't say whether it was mothers or fathers, but they said it was single family homes were like the worst, high risk at the high 80%. And with that said, more mothers are getting the children, not fathers. So that's a fact, and that's something that should concern people. I'm going to be cutting this off in about 10 more minutes, if you don't mind. I wanted to just close off here in these last 10 minutes. I wanted to talk to you about, let's see here. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up before we head on out? Let's see.
No, let's talk about some things that you and your viewers, like what people ask you and what help they need, and what common issues they have. Maybe we can talk about some of that stuff.
Thank you. I apologize for not being fully prepared. I ran home from work today. I was running a little behind, so I apologize for not being fully prepared to my viewers and to you, Father X. The number one problem I see with my viewers, well, basically they're all going through divorce or going through separation. One of the things that hurts me is I've actually had a couple children reach out to me on my channel and in their teens, and said they came across my videos and they were really, really sorry that this has happened. This happened to their father. And that was one of the things that really kind of struck me. It really, I would take some time to really like read their message, and I really thought it over before I responded back, because I felt as though that was very, very sensitive. We're talking to a child. I'm messaging back to a child, and I could possibly say something, although I'm trying to be positive, I could possibly say something that can like hurt them in what their next things going to do in life, or the way they look at things in life, or they look at relationships. And I didn't want to destroy the innocence that they still have. And that was really, really important for me. And so I think to answer your question, many of the fathers, and even also these a couple of the kids that actually messaged me, I'll never forget their messages. I can feel that they were
I've seen those before also. I've seen those. I know what you mean when kids text or comments on YouTube videos.
And it really struck a nerve with me. It really struck a nerve with me. And one of the things I noticed is that the relationship that they're losing out on the relationship. The child is being kept from them. They're not able to hold on to the relationship. The child is forgetting them. They're not wanting to talk to them anymore. Mom is manipulating the phone calls so they can't speak to them. I'm actually going through that myself many times. Many times for a long period of time where she allows me to speak to my daughter, but there's many times where she does manipulate the phone calls. And you have to be at peace. You have to be totally happy. You can't let your child see that side of you, or angry side of you. You never want to share that part of you that feels frustrated and upset. You always want your children to see you in a bright light. I guess to ask you, what is your response to fathers that are just kind of going through that difficult darkness inside them, missing their children? Is there any kind of anything that you can kind of share as a father yourself?
Yes, a lot of what you said struck me because I have gone through YouTube videos and I read the comments on other YouTube videos about this topic because I want to know what people are thinking. And sometimes I see comments by teenagers who say, I can't see my dad or whatever. And when you see that, that is a big signal that tells you that family court judges have no idea what they're doing.
Right.
Or that what the family court judge is doing is maliciously evil to separate a child from the father. If the child wants to see their dad, why is the judge stopping that, right? It's just absurd. Or for a judge to say, hey, Dad, you get alternate weekends, and that's plenty, right? That's honestly, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Right? A lot of judges think that's okay. It's not okay. It's stupid. It's nothing short of stupid.
All right. Exactly.
So it's painful to see that, and we see a lot of kids now speaking up about parental alienation and how they learned that their mother and the courts kept them away from their dad all these years. Right? And these are teenagers speaking up, or kids that are 20-something years old.
Yeah.
Because they grew up in the last 20 years in this environment. Yeah. Right? So children now who are 20 years old are telling us that family court screwed it up.
Yeah.
Right? So it's sad. And then another thing that you mentioned is about phone calls. And if you're long distance, you have to rely on the phone calls with your kids. But I'll tell you, Rocky, when I got custody and my son was 4, the court gave the mother the right to call my son every single day.
Yeah.
They didn't give me the right to call him when he was with her every other weekend, alternate weekends. Yeah. But she had the right to call him during my parenting time. And what happens in my home, we're doing something, my son and I, or whatever, and then the phone rings and it's her. And then we're in the middle of doing something and he just doesn't feel like picking up the phone and stopping to take his brain out of where he is right now and transfer it to talking to his mother, like every day. Like he's in the middle of something or he doesn't feel like it. So that dynamic happens because kids are here. They're not over there. Right. So they don't want to talk to the other parent because they're here. It's not bad or good. I think it's just a natural. I think that's just what happens.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate, right? Because if you're the non-custodial parent and you never get to see your kid, well, what? Then you don't get to speak to them either because it's inconvenient.
Right.
I mean, the courts think that like the dad speaking to, just call the kid on the phone and everything will be fine. It doesn't really work that way. When my son had to go, as he got older, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, 10 years old, he started telling me, maybe when he was 10, he would tell me, when I go see my mom for an alternate weekend, like Friday to Sunday night, Friday night to Sunday night, on Friday morning, I have to change my brain entirely because I'm leaving you, and I have to change everything that I believe because I'm going to go into her house where it's a different group of people and a different belief system and, you know, different rules. So I have to change everything about my brain. And then on Sunday, I get to come back to my other brain.
Wow.
So he had to craft that.
Yeah.
And it's difficult on kids. And I think most dads get upset when they don't get to call their kid, which is perfectly natural and understandable.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say the other side is the kid might just be doing a lot of things and just can't emotionally transition to talking to you about your topics.
Exactly. That's so important that you brought that up. I just want to say that is the exact conversation I've had. We have to remember that they're children, and you know they're in the world of like this toy and these cool things and these shiny stuff and or this cake or this cartoon, and they're in this world. And to go into the world of a phone and just close up and just kind of stare at the wall is really not where a kid wants to be. They want to be in the cake or the cartoon or the toys or something like that, or artwork. I think many of the fathers actually, they take it they're too sensitive and they take it too hard on themselves, and they let it kind of drain themselves and feel more depressed. And that's the problem I think with fathers, just letting themselves sink into more depression. My child doesn't want to talk to me. No, it's, you really, they may be a little busy, and you know, drawing on the chalkboard, that they're busy, that's important for them right there, you know. But us as parents, we almost like, we take it so sensitive and we take it to heart, like, oh, why does he want to talk to me? Or why doesn't she want to
especially
talk
if
to
it's
me?
every day.
Right.
If it's every day, like my son had no interest in talking to his mom on the phone every day. And he would say gibberish and then hang up sometimes. And I'm like here watching it. You know, but the thing is, but there's so many different dimensions of this, because what if you have a call with your kid once a week, right? If it's just once a week, and that's all you have, like you would expect the other parent to do everything they can to make that phone call happen, because it's just once a week. And like, you know, so there's that kind of burden on the custodial parent to make it happen. And it's a fair burden because you want them to encourage that relationship. I mean, it's not every day, it's once a week. Like, how hard is that?
Right.
And I think that the problem is that the court sets up these ridiculous custody arrangements where dad are just alternate weekend parents or less, or God forbid you're long distance in different states, right? The real problem is that you don't have 50-50 custody. And I'll tell you, if you two parents had 50-50 custody, and you know for a fact that for the next 5 years, it's every Sunday at 6 p.m., the kid is with you Sunday to Sunday, and then gone Sunday to Sunday, and then with you Sunday to Sunday. If you know that you're an equal parent, 50-50 that way, and the mother knows that, and the kid knows that, your brain changes. And then when your kid is with the mother, you don't feel the need to call them on that Tuesday night and Thursday night, and the phone call doesn't matter as much because you have equal parenting time, and you have equal like time to during your own time to be with them and cook breakfast with them and cook dinner with them and watch TV together at night or play games. So the real reason that you need that phone call is because the underlying custody arrangement is backwards or not equal. Right. So that's why it becomes frustrating. That need does go away. If you have 50-50 custody, like I never felt the need to call my son when he's traveling. I have the right to now. But I don't feel the need to because I know where I stand.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's a different dynamic, right? I don't know if you've ever noticed that. People that are 50-50 don't need to call their children.
That's true. That is true. We're gonna go ahead and close right now. I want to say thank you so much, Father X, for taking the time again. I appreciate you. I look forward. Can we try to do this maybe one more day tomorrow, and I'll be a little bit more prepared. That's for sure.
I think I'm booked tomorrow.
Are you booked? Okay.
Let's talk after this. Try to figure out the next time we can meet up.
Sounds good. Thank you again, Father X. Where can they find you on your YouTube channel? Please, if you can let them know one more time, and I'll put the link below.
Yeah, I'm on YouTube right now, only YouTube, and it's youtube.com/@FatherX2022, which is the year I started doing this at the end of 2022. So FatherX 2022.
Awesome, guys. Thank you again for watching, you guys. I hope you guys can take some time to watch this live after it posts up. Please feel free to leave some comments for Father X, subscribe to his channel, and reach out to him if you are going through a custody battle or going through family courts. Thank you again, Father X, and thank you all for watching this live. I wish you guys all the best. You guys take care.
Thank you.
I am literally